my dad is right, it is my culture to help my family financially. I am stuck in middle of both worlds, my family and Forrest as well.
It's just concerning for us because you're going to be in a relationship with her dad, make accommodations to the dad, and I'm worried.
Sheena's world just exploded in ways that no one saw coming. Imagine being trapped between the two most important parts of your life: your family, who depends on you financially, and the man you love who thinks he has a say over your every dollar. That's exactly where Sheena finds herself. And the tension is so thick, it feels like you could slice it with a knife. Last night's dinner wasn't just awkward, it was a full-blown revelation. Secrets she had been hiding about lending money to her parents came spilling out, and suddenly, everyone's loyalties, intentions, and trusts were under fire. Forrest, who somehow managed to survive the shock, is already floating on cloud nine, insisting that everything coming to light is a good thing, while Molly is staring daggers at him, probably wondering if she should have packed a helmet along with the dinner plate. You can almost hear the collective audience gasp, how could anyone consider proposing after this financial mess? Yet, there he is, ready to talk about rings, vows, and life together, apparently blind to the chaos that's still swirling around them. The real drama, though, isn't just about money. It's about culture, identity, and control. Sheena's Filipino heritage comes with an unshakable sense of duty. Helping her family isn't optional, it's a core part of who she is. And while she wants to honor that, Forrest and his mother have made it very clear that they see her finances as something they can influence, manage, or even dictate. It's a classic collision of worlds, one side demanding obedience, the other anchored in loyalty and tradition. Sheena is trying to navigate this minefield without losing herself, but it feels like every step she takes is being scrutinized, judged, and manipulated. She's caught between asserting her independence and keeping the people she loves from exploding into full-blown arguments. And honestly, who could blame her for feeling stuck? The pressure is relentless, and the emotional stakes couldn't be higher. Sabrina here with TLC Drama Live. Welcome. If you're new, make sure to subscribe because you won't want to miss a second of this. And I need to know your thoughts. Comment below on who you think has the right to influence Sheena's choices, her family, or Forrest and Molly. Watching her squirm through this situation, you start to notice the little thing, the way she hesitates when Forrest praises her honesty, the small but tense glances she exchanges with her dad, and the barely contained frustration in Molly's eyes. Every interaction is loaded with meaning, every word is a potential landmine. Sheena's attempts to explain her actions are met with skepticism, yet she is also trying to remain loyal to both worlds, a balancing act that is heartbreaking to witness. And then there's the question that keeps everyone on edge. Can Forrest truly separate his feelings from the influence of his mother and Sheena's father? He wants to believe in love, he wants to believe in trust, yet the lies, the secrets, and the financial control tug at the very foundation of that trust. Will he see the full picture or continue to float in denial while expecting Sheena to compromise her culture for him? Meanwhile, Sheena is forced to consider sacrifices that no one should have to weigh against their own identity. Will she relinquish the money she's promised to her family, or will she risk the wrath of Forrest and Molly to stay true to her roots? The tension is already boiling over, and the stakes couldn't be higher. With every passing minute, the question lingers like smoke in the room. Can love survive when money, manipulation, and cultural loyalty are all tangled together? And just when you think you might get a glimpse of the answer, another twist is waiting, threatening to tip the balance entirely. Sheena's heart is literally split in two, and it all comes down to money, family, and cultural loyalty. In her Filipino upbringing, helping your parents isn't a suggestion, it's an unspoken rule, a responsibility woven into every decision you make. It's about respect, love, and the belief that your success should lift the people who raised you. But try explaining that to Forrest and Molly, and suddenly what feels natural and necessary to Sheena becomes some kind of rebellion or red flag. Forrest, bless his heart, looks at the situation like it's a math problem. Money in, money out, accountability, control. He doesn't seem to grasp that Sheena's generosity isn't about financial recklessness, it's about family duty. And then there's Molly, who approaches the situation like a drill sergeant in a financial boot camp, eager to enforce rules that she herself isn't following. Watching her attempt to police someone else's finances under the guise of protecting my son is equal parts absurd and exhausting. Every interaction is a tightrope walk for Sheena. She's trying to keep everyone happy while staying true to her identity, but the pressure is relentless. Imagine trying to explain to the person you love that giving money to your parents isn't a choice, it's part of who you are, while that same person insists that your identity has to bend to their rules. Sheena's internal tension is palpable. She wants to be the perfect girlfriend, the obedient partner, the person Forrest and Molly can trust. But she also wants to honor her family, and every dollar she gives them is a symbol of love, loyalty, and cultural pride. This isn't about being honest or dishonest, at least not in her mind. It's about survival in two conflicting worlds that each demand everything from her. The irony is brutal. Forrest praises Sheena for being honest, completely oblivious to the fact that she's still hiding the full truth about how much she's actually helping her family. He smiles, talks about trust, and gushes about her positive changes, yet doesn't realize he's rewarding partial transparency while punishing authenticity. Molly, on the other hand, is already plotting in her head how to turn this honesty into another stick to hit Sheena with, reminding Forrest that she can't be trusted because of past omissions. It's emotional manipulation at its finest, and watching it play out makes you want to scream. How can anyone expect someone to navigate a relationship when the people supposedly protecting them are constantly bending truth and fairness to fit their own narrative? Sheena herself is caught in a constant feedback loop of guilt and obligation. Every time she thinks about what Forrest and Molly expect, her chest tightens. Every time she thinks about her parents, a pang of duty hits like a weight she can't put down. And somewhere in the middle, she's asking herself what love actually means. Is it sacrifice, compromise, or is it freedom to be yourself? Her eyes flicker with uncertainty every time the conversation drifts to finances, and you can see the mental gymnastics she has to perform just to avoid a full-blown argument. And yet, she continues to try. She reassures Forrest, nods at Molly, smiles at her dad, all while keeping secrets that she knows could blow everything up in an instant. That delicate dance between loyalty and love, duty and desire is razor sharp. Will Forrest ever see the full picture, or is he too wrapped up in his version of trust to notice that she's still holding back? And more importantly, how long can Sheena sustain this tightrope act before something finally snaps? Sheena's small white lies started as a way to keep the peace, but they quickly snowballed into a full-blown storm. She had told Forrest that her parents were taking money without her consent, creating a narrative that painted her as the victim, when in reality, she had willingly lent them funds and expected repayment. It wasn't malicious. It was a way to avoid conflict, a way to protect herself from a relationship that suddenly felt like it came with a ledger she didn't agree to. But the moment Forrest found out, the calm facade cracked. He seemed to believe that because he wanted to trust her, the truth was automatically aligned with his own assumptions. His naivety is almost shocking. He congratulates her for being honest, yet he doesn't see that she had carefully curated the story to fit his comfort level. Overconfidence mixes with love here, and the result is a perfect storm where he assumes control of her finances without really understanding them. Molly, of course, sees the cracks immediately. She positions herself as the guardian of truth, using every detail to paint Sheena as unreliable, manipulative, or worse. But she's not just pointing out facts, she's weaponizing Forrest's neurodiversity, subtly implying that his trusting nature makes him vulnerable to deception. It's manipulative, yes, but it's also calculated genius in the context of the drama. Forrest begins to second-guess himself, wondering if his instincts about love are clouded by his own trust issues. And suddenly, the relationship is no longer about Sheena's choices, but about his perception of them, shaped by someone else entirely. Every glance Molly throws, every carefully phrased question, turns into a pressure cooker for Forrest, pushing him to doubt and overanalyze in ways that make the money issue feel like the biggest threat to their future together. Meanwhile, Sheena is trapped. She wants to be honest, she wants to be loyal, she wants to honor her family, but the lies she told have left her walking a tightrope above two worlds that expect everything. Her dad, watching all of this unfold, can see how unfair it is. She's carrying the weight of cultural obligations while simultaneously being judged for them. He steps in, calmly but firmly confronting her about the lies and the money, insisting that honesty has to be non-negotiable if the relationship is going to survive. It's a wake-up call that cuts through the fog of manipulation, overconfidence, and emotional chaos. The emotional tension here is massive. Sheena has to reconcile the fact that she wanted to protect the ones she loves, yet her actions have been twisted into ammunition by those around her. Forrest has to realize that trusting someone doesn't mean rewriting their story to fit your comfort, and Molly has to confront whether she's genuinely protecting her son or just orchestrating doubt to satisfy her own sense of control. Every conversation is layered with unspoken expectations, with silent judgments hovering over each decision Sheena makes, and you can feel the exhaustion in her eyes as she tries to navigate the impossible. But here's the question everyone's asking. Is Forrest really protecting her or just protecting himself? His naivety, combined with Molly's manipulations, leaves him blind to the reality that Sheena has been trying to honor both him and her family at the same time. And right at that tipping point, her father lays it out in no uncertain terms. If you're going to be part of this relationship, you need to be completely upfront. No more half-truth, no more omissions, no more letting fear dictate your honesty. The confrontation isn't angry or dramatic. It's a firm, measured reminder that the next step requires courage, clarity, and a commitment to truth that can't be compromised. No matter how much pressure comes from either side, Forrest and Molly are practically breathing down Sheena's neck, and every interaction feels like a chess match where she's the only one playing by the rules. On one side, you have Molly, wielding influence like a weapon disguised as concern, constantly reminding Forrest that Sheena's past dishonesty is proof he needs to watch her every move. Forrest, for his part, is suddenly elevated to self-appointed financial guardian, nodding solemnly as if he's the authority on how Sheena should handle her own money. So Forrest thinks he's a financial advisor now, but he doesn't even have a budget for himself. Meanwhile, Sheena's father watches all of this unfold with a level of calm that almost makes you forget how tense the room is. He doesn't yell or lecture. He simply reminds Sheena that her cultural duty to her family isn't negotiable, and that honesty is non-negotiable too. His influence is protective, rooted in love and respect, whereas Molly and Forrest's insistence on controlling her finances is suffocating, coercive, and frankly, exhausting to witness. Watching Sheena navigate this storm is fascinating because the conflict isn't just external, it's psychological. On one side, she has people who supposedly love her trying to dictate her life, and on the other, her dad reminding her of who she is and what she values. Every conversation, every question about money feels like a test of loyalty, intelligence, and emotional stamina. She wants to satisfy Forrest, she wants to ease Molly's judgment, but she also wants to honor her parents and maintain a sense of self that isn't dictated by someone else's expectation. The tug of war is relentless, and the tension you feel as a viewer mirrors what she's experiencing. A gnawing uncertainty about whether she can ever do enough to keep everyone happy. The shared account situation is where the absurdity reaches peak levels. Forrest is insisting on combining finances with Sheena, despite having no real income or financial stability of his own. He confidently lays out plans as if he's taking charge, all while conveniently ignoring the fact that this gives him legal access to her money, a move that would alarm any rational observer. And Sheena, caught in the middle, has to smile, nod, and try to negotiate a compromise that doesn't betray her own sense of duty or autonomy. Her father, ever the calm strategist, immediately pushes back, reminding both of them that ownership and access are serious matters and that Sheena's ability to support her family shouldn't be undermined by someone else's entitlement. The behavioral dynamics here are so layered, it's almost dizzying. Forrest's actions look protective on the surface, but they're controlling at their core. Molly's manipulations exploit his trust and amplify doubt, turning what should be a partnership into a battleground. Sheena, meanwhile, is left to act as both diplomat and peacekeeper, constantly weighing each word, each gesture, each dollar she gives or keeps. The emotional weight of this is immense, and you can see it in the way she hesitates, the way her shoulders tighten, the tiny expressions that betray her inner conflict. And that's the heart of this act. Sheena must decide how much she's willing to compromise without sacrificing herself. Will she give in to Forrest and Molly's pressure and allow her autonomy to be stripped away? Or will she stand her ground, honor her family, and assert her right to manage her own finances? Every glance, every conversation hints that this decision isn't just about money. It's about identity, love, and respect. The stakes couldn't be higher, and the tension is so thick, you can feel it lingering in the air, waiting for her next move. Sheena finally reaches a compromise, but it's one that highlights just how absurdly tangled her life has become. To appease Forrest and Molly without completely surrendering her autonomy, she agrees to send weekly screenshots of her bank account. Every transaction, every deposit, every cent tracked and scrutinized by people who aren't even earning their own way in the relationship. Think about that for a second. Her money, earned by her hard work, now needs to be accounted for like she's under house arrest. It's almost laughable if it weren't so emotionally draining. She's trying to satisfy everyone, but the act of doing so leaves her trapped in a cycle where nothing she does feels enough. It's the ultimate compromise of peace. She gets to keep helping her family, Forrest gets a sense of control, Molly gets to monitor, and yet no one truly gets what they actually want. The emotional impact of this arrangement can't be overstated. Every time Sheena opens her banking app, it's no longer just numbers. It's a reminder of the pressure, the judgment, and the constant watchfulness of everyone around her. Her autonomy is being chipped away piece by piece, and with it, her sense of self-worth is being tested daily. When someone else gets to decide whether your generosity is acceptable or whether your cultural obligations are too much, it's easy to start questioning your own judgment. Sheena's caught in a psychological loop where she must continuously measure her actions against the expectations of others, even as those expectations shift unpredictably. Watching this unfold is both fascinating and heartbreaking because it's a behavior pattern so many of us recognize, bending ourselves to please others until we forget what it feels like to honor our own needs. Meanwhile, Forrest seems oblivious to the toll this compromise takes. He smiles, reassured by the weekly accountability, convinced that everything is fine as long as he can see the numbers. Molly, of course, is delighted. She now has concrete evidence to monitor Sheena's behavior and reinforce doubt whenever she wants. From a human psychology perspective, this is manipulation packaged as protection. By making Sheena report every dollar, they reinforce control and subtly undermine her confidence. It's no wonder she sometimes seems hesitant, anxious, and emotionally drained. She's navigating an environment where love and oversight have been tangled into one confusing knot. Yet, for Sheena, this compromise is also an act of courage. She's not backing down completely. She's finding a way to honor her family and maintain some agency over her choices, even while under scrutiny. It's a delicate balancing act, and the tension is palpable every time she opens her phone to take that screenshot. The audience can't help but feel the weight of every decision she's forced to make, the invisible strings tugging at her autonomy. And the big question remains, can this arrangement survive? Sheena is attempting to maintain harmony in an impossible situation, but the constant pressure, Forrest's naivety, and Molly's manipulation create a perfect storm. Every time she complies, it buys temporary peace, but it also sets the stage for the next conflict, the next misunderstanding, and the next test of trust. Will these weekly reports actually prevent disaster, or are they just delaying an inevitable explosion? Only time will tell, and the tension hanging over her every action keeps the audience glued, waiting for the moment when compromise either saves the day or shatters everything. Molly's reaction to Sheena's dad's influence is immediate, loud, and almost theatrical. Every word he says about Sheena's financial decisions, every reminder that she'll continue to help her family, is met with incredulity and outrage. She can't understand why someone outside of her own family would dare have a say in a relationship, yet she somehow fails to see the irony in how much she herself has inserted into Sheena and Forrest's life. It's the ultimate case of double standards. When it's her son, her rules, her control, it's love and protection. When it's Sheena's father, suddenly it's interference, overreach, and unacceptable. Watching her fume, you can't help but notice the hypocrisy and how it amplifies the drama, because every argument she makes is essentially a mirror of her own behavior, just directed at someone else. Meanwhile, Sheena's dad maintains calm authority. He doesn't raise his voice or escalate unnecessarily. He simply sets boundaries that protect his daughter's autonomy and ensure her cultural obligations aren't dismissed. His influence is steady, consistent, and grounded in experience, which makes Molly's outrage feel even more performative. He's advocating for Sheena in a way that acknowledges her agency, while Molly's anger is rooted in wanting to control outcomes to fit her narrative. Every time she interrupts, every time she questions his authority, it's a reminder that emotional manipulation can easily be disguised as concern. Sheena is forced to witness this clash of influence, and it's impossible not to empathize with how exhausting it must be to navigate. Forrest, meanwhile, is caught in the crossfire. On one side, his mother, the voice of caution or manipulation, depending on your perspective, is pushing him to distrust Sheena's intentions and enforce her control over the finances. On the other, Sheena's father is calmly insisting that his daughter's choices, her honesty, and her cultural duties deserve respect. Forrest oscillates between the two, torn between his loyalty to his mother and his love for Sheena, unsure how to reconcile the two conflicting pressures. Every glance, every hesitant word betrays the inner conflict that viewers can almost feel in real time. You can see the strain as he tries to maintain balance while the emotional tug of war intensifies. The stakes here are more than financial. They're psychological. Both parents are operating from positions of influence, but their methods and intentions couldn't be more different. Molly's control is invasive and fear-driven, designed to shape behavior through doubt and pressure. Sheena's dad's guidance, however, is protective and principle-driven, focused on supporting Sheena's autonomy and cultural identity. The contrast is glaring, and the audience can't help but question the real motives behind every comment, every critique, every expectation placed on Sheena. If you think you've seen manipulation, wait until you see who's really trying to control who here. Forrest's caught in the middle, but it's Sheena who bears the weight of both influences. Every decision she makes, every compromise, every hesitant word reflects the tension of having her autonomy scrutinized from all sides. And while Forrest struggles to pick a side, the audience is left gripping their seat, knowing that any misstep could tip the delicate balance and set off an emotional explosion that might finally force the truth and the consequences into the open. Sheena's day-to-day feels like walking a tightrope over a pit of fire. Every smile she offers Forrest must be measured, every word she says to Molly calculated, and every decision about her money weighed against her father's expectation. The guilt is relentless. She wants to do right by her family, but also show love and loyalty to Forrest, and somehow she has to survive Molly's relentless judgment on top of all that. It's exhausting, emotionally draining, and completely unfair. Her internal monologue is probably screaming, "How is it even possible to satisfy everyone when their definitions of enough keep changing?" Sheena is trying to please, negotiate, and survive at the same time, and the audience can feel every second of that tension. And while she's caught in this storm, the romantic expectations she faces clash dramatically with her cultural obligation. In her Filipino upbringing, helping one's family financially isn't optional. It's a duty, a form of respect and love. In Forrest's world, apparently it's a red flag, a reason to doubt her integrity, or worse, a reason to attempt controlling her every move. Can you imagine the cognitive dissonance? You're taught to be generous, to honor your parents, and suddenly that same generosity becomes evidence of dishonesty or irresponsibility. It's a recipe for stress that would make anyone feel like they're failing at life, love, and loyalty all at once. Meanwhile, Forrest's innocence or naivety adds another layer of complication. He praises Sheena for being honest in the same breath she's still hiding details about her finances. His optimism and blind trust are endearing, but also frustrating, because it gives Molly ammunition to manipulate him. Sheena's stuck between protecting her relationship and protecting her own identity, and every action feels like a high-stakes gamble. So much for a stress-free romance, huh? Her emotions are a cocktail of love, anxiety, guilt, and defiance. Sheena knows that every compromise chips away at her independence, and yet she also wants to maintain peace and show that she can be the partner Forrest hopes she is. But deep down, there's a simmering realization. At some point, compromises become chains, and appeasement turns into surrender. The audience can almost see her weighing the cost of each concession. Should she keep bending to others' expectations, or is it finally time to draw a line and reclaim her autonomy? The psychological stakes here are enormous. Every forced compromise and every watchful eye chips at her self-worth. Sheena is experiencing firsthand what happens when external pressures hijack personal decision-making. She's learning, painfully, that love alone isn't always enough to protect you from being manipulated or controlled by those who claim to have your best interests at heart. And yet, despite all the stress, Sheena's determination remains. There's a spark in her that refuses to be fully extinguished, a voice telling her that her values, her culture, and her autonomy matter. The tension is palpable. Will she finally assert her independence, or will the combined pressure of Forrest, Molly, and even her own desire to please keep her trapped in this impossible balancing act? The next move she makes could change everything, and the audience is left on edge, knowing that whatever choice comes next will define not just the relationship, but Sheena herself. Forrest is finally starting to feel the weight of reality pressing down on him. The idea of a shared account, something he initially thought would make him feel closer and more in control of the relationship, suddenly seems more complicated than he imagined. He's never had to manage money at this scale before, let alone someone else's money, and now the responsibility feels like a spotlight on his inexperience. From his perspective, it makes sense to question things. He wants security, he wants fairness, and yes, he wants to feel like he's contributing to a future he hopes will include Sheena. But at the same time, the tug of war between his mother's warnings and Sheena's cultural values creates a fog that makes it nearly impossible for him to think clearly. Empathy helps us understand why Forrest is so conflicted. On one hand, he genuinely loves Sheena and wants to believe in her honesty. But his trust is constantly challenged by Molly's pointed remarks. Every suggestion she makes, every subtle question about Sheena's intentions, is designed to make him second-guess himself and doubt her. From a psychological perspective, this is a classic case of influence through emotional leverage. Molly knows where his weaknesses lie, and she uses them to create fear, uncertainty, and dependency. Forrest's confusion isn't a failure on his part. It's human. When someone you love is questioned relentlessly by a trusted authority figure, your judgment gets clouded, and self-doubt creeps in. Meanwhile, the shared account issue is about more than money. It's a symbol of control. Forrest initially sees it as partnership, but Sheena's father, and even Sheena herself, remind him that money isn't just numbers. It's tied to independence, respect, and cultural identity. Forrest wants to be a responsible partner. Yet every step he takes feels like it could overstep, offend, or provoke mistrust. He's caught between the desire to support Sheena and the social conditioning of listening to his mother, who frames every suggestion as protective advice. Here's where it gets tricky. Who's actually in charge of Sheena's choices? Is it Forrest, trying to negotiate what he believes is a fair partnership? Is it Molly, whose emotional manipulation pushes him to doubt his own instincts? Or is it Sheena, the one living in a constant balancing act, forced to appease everyone while trying to honor her own values? The lines of authority blur, and the power dynamics become increasingly tense. Every decision he makes about money, communication, or compromise carries emotional weight, and the consequences aren't just financial, they're deeply relational. Forrest's internal conflict escalates as he realizes that he's been manipulated, even if subtly. He wants to see Sheena's honesty, yet his blind trust in Molly makes him vulnerable to her influence. Each conversation with her leaves him emotionally tangled, unsure whether he's acting out of reason or maternal persuasion. And while he wrestles with these feelings, the audience is left wondering, will he wake up to the manipulation and trust Sheena on her own terms, or will he continue letting his mother guide the narrative, jeopardizing both his relationship and Sheena's autonomy? Every hesitation, every question he asks himself keeps viewers on the edge of their seats, knowing that his next move could tip the entire balance of this high-stakes relationship. The tension in the room is thick enough to cut with a knife. Sheena, trying to keep her composure, feels every eye on her like a spotlight, exposing every decision she's ever made about her money, her family, and her relationship. Forrest shifts uneasily, caught between his mother's relentless questioning and Sheena's father's quiet insistence that his daughter's autonomy be respected. Molly's voice cuts through like a whip, sharp and unyielding, reminding everyone, especially Forrest, how irresponsible she thinks Sheena has been. But here's the kicker. Who is really irresponsible? Sheena for trying to balance love and duty, or Forrest and Molly for trying to dictate someone else's choices? Sheena's dad leans in, calm but firm, and the contrast couldn't be starker. Where Molly fires accusations and demands control, he reminds Sheena that her choices about helping her family financially are hers to make, and they don't make her a bad partner or a bad daughter. It's the ultimate clash of behavioral styles, manipulation versus guidance, control versus protection, outrage versus reason. You can practically see Sheena's brain ticking, calculating every word, every pause, every gesture to keep the peace without sacrificing her core values. How long can she keep walking this tightrope before something snaps? Forrest's unease is palpable. His earlier confidence about the shared account and financial oversight starts to crumble under the pressure of competing influences. He wants to be supportive, he wants to be protective, but the more Molly pushes, the more he questions his own judgment. And Sheena? Well, she's stuck in the middle, trying to maintain both love and integrity. Every glance, every sigh, every "are you sure about this?" carries weight that's almost unbearable. You have to ask yourself, if love is supposed to feel safe, why does this feel like a minefield? Molly's manipulation hits a peak here. She skillfully twists Forrest's doubts, reminding him of past lies and implying that Sheena's generosity toward her family is proof of deceit. The audience can see the strategy clear as day: plant seeds of fear and mistrust, let them grow in Forrest's mind, then watch him second-guess every decision he makes. And yet, Sheena's dad is there, a stabilizing force, countering each dig with reason, culture, and emotional truth. This isn't just about money. It's about respect, trust, and boundaries. The emotional stakes are insane. Sheena is feeling guilt, pressure, and the subtle fear that any wrong word could tip the balance and undo her relationship entirely. Forrest is struggling to reconcile love and loyalty with doubt and influence. Molly is relishing the control she exerts, even as it exposes her own contradiction. And the audience? They're trapped in the suspense, questioning every motive, every gesture, every statement. Whose behavior would you call manipulative? Who's actually trying to help? And who's trying to control? And just when it seems like the conversation might settle, the arguments circle back on themselves. Points made earlier resurface, tempers flare, and nothing is resolved. Sheena's dad refuses to back down from his principles, Molly refuses to release control, and Forrest hesitates, unsure whether to trust his mother or his partner. The room is a pressure cooker, and the audience can feel the heat radiating from every interaction. By the end of this confrontation, tension hangs unresolved. Relationships teeter on the edge, trust is fractured, and the stakes feel higher than ever. The question lingers: who will bend, who will break, and who will finally take control of their own choices? By the end of the day, Sheena finally takes a breath and makes her position clear, but in a way that leaves everyone guessing. She's not surrendering her values, yet she's trying to navigate the impossible maze of demands around her. Sheena agrees to certain compromises, like keeping Forrest in the loop about her finances, but she refuses to give up her cultural responsibility to support her family. Her stance is subtle but firm. She's drawing boundaries while still trying to keep the peace. You can almost feel the tension leaving her shoulders in small waves, even though the room remains charged with unresolved questions. The audience is left thinking, is this temporary truce a victory for her independence, or a fragile agreement that could collapse at the slightest spark? The psychology behind this is fascinating. When someone like Sheena is pulled between love, family duty, and external pressure, the brain becomes hyper-aware of every decision, every word, and every reaction. Compromise is no longer a simple negotiation, it's a matter of identity, trust, and survival. Sheena's choices reflect more than money. They signal autonomy, self-respect, and the courage to honor one's culture even when others try to redefine it. Forrest's role in this dynamic is just as revealing. His internal struggle shows how influence and doubt can warp judgment, even when intentions are genuine. And Molly? She's the perfect case study of how control and maternal instincts, when unchecked, can tip into manipulation. By allowing Sheena to take small but meaningful control, her father reinforces the lesson that boundaries are essential, even in relationships. Autonomy doesn't mean isolation, and love doesn't require sacrificing your identity. Sheena's careful navigation demonstrates emotional intelligence and resilience. She's negotiating not just her relationship with Forrest, but also with the very people who want to steer her life in their favor. Watching this play out gives viewers a relatable reflection. Everyone faces conflicting expectations, and standing firm is rarely easy, especially when emotions, money, and family are involved. And yet, even with these boundaries, tension is far from resolved. Forrest remains caught between trusting Sheena and deferring to his mother, Molly, predictably, still protests and questions every step, leaving viewers on edge. Will her influence finally tip the balance, or will Sheena's quiet strength hold firm? The scene closes with a sense of cautious optimism for Sheena, but also an open-ended question about how long her compromises can last. The balance between cultural duty, romantic love, and external pressure remains delicate, keeping the stakes high for the next episode. Meanwhile, the audience is invited to reflect. Would you stand your ground the way Sheena is, or would you let outside voices dictate your choices? How do you weigh love against personal responsibility and family loyalty? These questions resonate far beyond the show itself, making the drama both entertaining and thought-provoking. And with other couples in similar situations on the horizon, the story promises more twists, clashes, and emotional confrontations that will keep viewers coming back for answers. The door closes on this chapter, but the conflict is far from over. Sheena has set her boundaries, but the drama, the manipulation, and the high-stakes emotional tension are far from done. Viewers are left with one thought lingering in their minds. How will love survive when control, cultural duty, and outside influence collide? The answer won't come easy, and it won't come quietly. Next time, the pressure cooker heats up, and the consequences of every choice will ripple even further, leaving hearts racing and minds questioning what it really means to love and trust in the middle of chaos. Would you do what Sheena is doing, or would you let someone else control your choices?